Welcome back to part 4 of my renowned Hall of Fame, which is known as Women of Horror. Well, it's world renowned to me and that's about it, but that does not take away from the magnificence of these actresses and their work. Okay, let me be honest. Today's entry is both a worthy recipient and a little self-indulgent as my all-time crush in the whole wide world, the woman I would walk over hot coals for, and my absolute definition of perfection is Rachel Nichols. So, as Christmas is approaching and P2, or Parking Level 2 for its less interesting name, is also a Christmas horror film, it's the perfect time for this video. Right then, rather than just gush my bias and adoration for the next 8 minutes, we are going to look at Rachel's performance, the challenges she overcomes, some conventions and pacing structure of the film, and also explore her stalker, played by the excellent Wes Bentley, who is partial to a Lana Del Rey cover in American Horror Story, do you know? And we'll also look at what category Wes Bentley's stalker falls into, using Mullen's diagnostic list of the 5 types of stalker. So let's get to it then. Let's look at P2. First things first, quick recap. Released in 2007, P2 is about Angela, played by Rachel Nichols, who is a single, workaholic, slightly selfish young woman who puts her career first and, through no fault of her own, sends one of her male colleagues into an inappropriate lunge which she shows embarrassment and contrition for. This is one of the early scenes he's seen apologising repeatedly, and Angela puts it to one side and moves on. That's the kind of girl she is. Anyway, Angela has to leave the office and get to her family with a sackload of presents in time for Christmas, but she just can't tear herself away from the office. Eventually, once clocking off, she falls asleep in the lobby and, after missing her cab and jumping through a plot hole of both credulity and improbability, gets locked in the building with her only way out now being through the underground levels. It's here, as Angela tries but fails to find an exit, that she is abducted by the security guard, a man called Thomas, who, such is his devotion, changes her clothes, puts some lipstick on her and chains her to a chair so she can enjoy a microwave Christmas dinner with him. Things don't go quite the way Thomas envisaged though, and after some good luck and Machiavellian scheming, Angela frees herself and tries to escape. And that's it. The rest of the film is all cat and mouse as Angela runs, Thomas chases her, then hems her in, only for Angela to turn the tide and outwit him, only for Thomas to come back and rinse and repeat. The film holds no great social commentaries or philosophical ponderings. It's just a psychosexual stalker chasing a young woman through a car park until the inevitable end where one of them will win. Spoiler hint, it's Angela. It's worth noting that with only 2 actors occupying the vast majority of the film, the responsibility of making it believable is credit to both parties. Wes Bentley plays Thomas as he should be, a charming but short-tempered weirdo who has no real grasp on reality due to his unobtainable fascination with Angela. And Rachel Nichols shivers, screams and suffers with realism as she goes through the gamut of suffering in her quest to escape. First things first though, Angela is not a bimbo and nor is she a naive final girl from a slasher film whose character arc develops her into a reluctant warrior over a sexually deficient killer. Yes, Thomas is sexually deficient, we'll get to that in a minute, but Angela is established early on as a hard-working, independent, intelligent and no pushover when it comes to men, as her colleague is the one grovelling to her for being inappropriate earlier. Angela doesn't make stupid decisions or devolve into the cliches of a hysterical woman. She is the one who is outsmarting her stalker at every opportunity and, although the plot catches up with her and she suffers through each victory with more distress and or injury, she gives her nemesis one hell of a fight, both cerebrally and physically. However, despite being a worthy adversary and not a screaming horror moron who does stupid things, Angela is not immune to cliches. Of course her phone only has one bar which flickers when she holds it outside the closed gate. Of course she will drop her phone just after dialing 911. Of course the police will come, but not see or hear her. After all, Angela has to overcome this herself without the help of a man with a gun. And of course she'll break out of the car boot just as the police leave and she is all alone again. And most of all, of course she will turn the tide right at the end. Dressed in little more than a wrap of thin material, she runs barefoot across freezing concrete, gets half drowned in a lift full of water, and even has to do contortion to get out of a car boot. She doesn't miss a beat in the film, never gives up, and, in one of the more shocking scenes, kills Thomas's dog in a rather graphic fashion. Parking Level 2 is advertised as the next level in fear, and, whilst it's not even close to that proclamation, it is a decent film which offers suffering, gore, and some decent scenes. Standout ones which include when Thomas kills the man who groped Angela, mentioned earlier, by ramming him with a car until he bursts. Angela's discovery of the video, where she was unconscious and Thomas was touching her, and, as cited above, the dog scene is replete with bites, glass, and a miserable end for the canine. But let's go back to what I was talking about above. Most importantly, Thomas filming his obsession while she was unconscious and what he did and didn't do to her. There is no argument that Thomas is a stalker. He talks about watching her day in, day out when she is at work, and even knows her routine. He also appears to have this whole thing planned, as not only does he have the chains to hold a woman nearby, but he has also produced a rather nice dress which, apart from giving Angela a rather awesome cleavage, fits her perfectly. He seems to know everything about her, including her size. Oh, and he also has a stick of lipstick to put on his unconscious victim's face. When Angela wakes up, and when she discovers the video of her being dressed and made up whilst being in an unconscious coma, she squirms as we all realise that she will never know exactly what he did to her comatose body. In scenes which will ring true to anyone who's been sexually assaulted, whilst not in control of their faculties or mental capacity, the idea that someone has undressed her, touched her, stared at her and done things is truly unnerving. However, the film never goes out of its way to declare that Angela was raped while she was unconscious, and this is important. Thomas is a stalker. He's not Jason Voorhees or the rapist from I Spit on Your Grave. He's a sad, lonely, probably impotent little man who lives in a psychological storm of fantasy and psychosis that makes him believe that someone like Angela will just come round to him. She just needs time. So, there's a fair amount of respect from Thomas here, as he wants Angela to love him, come round to him consensually, and allow them to be together. This will never happen, but it does help us identify what type of stalker he is. According to a study in 1997, Australian stalking expert Paul Mullen deciphered there were 5 types of stalkers. They are the intimacy seeker, the incompetent suitor, the rejected, the resentful, and the predatory. Right off the bat, we can eliminate rejected, as he is not Angela's ex and she doesn't even know he exists. And he has pretty much guessed she doesn't have a boyfriend, so it's hardly likely that he fits resentful, as this category also depends on a pre-existing relationship. So what about predatory? Well, no, as these people have no desire for a relationship or do nothing but fantasise about sexually assaulting their victims. They're often known on sexual registers, and, let's be honest, Thomas isn't known to anyone, and that's why he's obsessed with someone so far from his capabilities, or out of his league in layman's terms. He doesn't fit an incompetent suitor either, considering he was so respectful, gentle, and has this fantasy of a dinner date planned where she will fall in love with him. So, therefore, Thomas is an intimacy-seeking stalker. According to Mullen, these stalkers identify a stranger and feelings of true love start to begin, and they behave as if they are in a relationship with the victim. They also carry the delusion that their love is reciprocated. Thomas hasn't assaulted Angela because he sees them together consensually. He has also bought her the clothes and prepared the office as a love scene. Even throughout the film, his anger and chasing of her isn't about hurting her. It's about convincing her that they belong together, but, as with the frustration-aggression hypothesis, when it finally dawns on him that this fantasy isn't real, that's when he decides that enough is enough and sets out to kill her. After Angela kills his dog and thwarts his every attempt at control, she faces off with him, but, after her car is wrecked, she plays one last deceptive hand and chains into a vehicle now bleeding petrol. It's here that our intimacy stalker, now injured and fully free of the fantasy which will consume him, releases his rage, and the anger within is now completely out in the open. There's no more denial, it's all venom. It's only here, with Angela walking away and the situation over, that he snaps and calls her the C word, and, for someone who has been objectified all night, that's one obscenity too far, and she burns him to death right there and then. It's as his fantasy breaks and reality hits him. Then, any lingering empathy or decency evaporates, and Angela kills him. This is where the roles reverse, and Angela becomes the willing sadist as she watches him burn in agony before her shivering eyes. Throughout abusing and chasing her, even when threatening and losing his temper, Thomas thinks she'll just come round and this is all bumps in the road to their eventual communion and consensual love. But when this fails and she finally breaks him, her trick of playing dead, unconscious plays with the tenderness he is bound to show her body, the death of his fantasy leaves him with nothing. It's only fitting that he literally dies there and then, as, with nothing left and his illusion shattered, he's as good as dead inside anyway. P2 is a decent film which has great leads and two people giving it their all. I'll be digging it out in December for part of my annual Christmas horror film binge, and, even though I know the film inside out, I'm looking forward to the 2020 viewing of P2. So spot number 4 goes to Rachel Nichols, and deservingly so. She's brilliant and, as I said at the start, my number 1 crush, so I'm not bashful about admitting her to the Hall of Fame. So she joins Sarah Butler, Lisa Wilcox and Naomi Harris in this pantheon of fine ladies, and next time, it's Elijah Dushku in Wrong Turn. Also, are there any ladies you'd like to see in the Hall of Fame? Anybody you feel is worthy of some recognition and a video? Let me know in the comments, and until then, I'll catch you later.